Mr Mayor, one question has been received from a member of the public under Procedure Rule 10, and the question is to the Council Leader from Saima Afzal. It is as set out in the guidance note. Just for clarification for members in terms of the procedure, Saima will be invited to ask her question, and she has up to 5 minutes to do so, to which the Leader can respond. She may then, if she wishes, ask a related supplementary question for a further response. And then that's the process for this part of the agenda. So we'll invite Saima to ask her question.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It doesn't actually give me any pleasure to be here today, to be honest. My question, and there's a preamble set out, and I won't read it all. I'm sure people can read that in their own time, but I will paraphrase a few points. And it's about standards in public life. I mean, we've seen an extremely low turnout across the UK. Whilst we can't influence what's going on in the United Kingdom as a whole, we can influence what's happening in Blackburn with Darwen. And as part of a activist, let's call myself that for now, but I am actually heavily involved in policing, safeguarding, vetting, standards, not just in public life, but across the public sector. And what we've observed locally has shocked me to the core. So whilst everything is civilised in this chamber and everybody's polite, well, I hope they remain polite after I've finished, shaking hands, what I observed through the community social media networks, and I do say community specifically, and we can define that another time, permeating through WhatsApp is nothing less than what I would describe as religio-cultural coercion and control, something I deal with as a form of domestic abuse, so-called honour-based violence, and that's what I've observed. I do have the evidence, so I'm not going to sit here and say something I haven't got evidence of. So what I would describe is what I've seen in the campaigning is nothing less than political hooliganism. That's how I would define it. I am pleased that I'm actually pleased, and I shouldn't be saying that I'm not a councillor and I did not stand for election in this particular set of local elections and general election. The toxicity and the male domination, what I saw, has put off many a person. Whilst our project and the work that I do is focused on women, it's actually put off men from all backgrounds, and that says something. If it's putting off men, can you imagine the impact on women? So let me just give you some examples of that behaviour. And one of the examples I'm going to allude to is I have seen WhatsApp that has stated if you vote for Conservative or Labour, you are a sinner. This is targeted within the Muslim diaspora. So these messages are targeted. So when a follower of Islam receives such a message, please don't underestimate the power of that message. To be called a sinner denotes sanctions, reprisals, punishment by no less than the Almighty. So this is not something you can undermine. Given that, this is what I deal with in the form of domestic violence, and we are constantly trying to put end to it. Why are our elected councillors and their associated political activists, not random people on social media and Twitter, people we know that we can name, using these tactics? And I was just shocked by the whole phenomena of what I saw. So whilst that's an example, we are doing more work, and I'm sure I will hopefully come back and work with trusted officials to share some of that work on our findings, because we do need to clamp down on this. This is not what democracy in the United Kingdom should be. It's excluding people. The apathy is beyond compare across the UK. And like I said, we'll focus on Blackburn. So whilst I've observed these behaviours in this election, they are not unique. The differences in this election, they have affected the mainstream popular MPs such as John Ashworth, and media are interested. These things have been going on for decades. we thought we'd progress, but we've regressed, in my opinion. So I do welcome the vetting or the enhanced vetting that will be introduced for all elected members. That's something I desperately worked hard for as chairwoman during my brief stint as a locally elected councillor. However, I do realise and recognise that vetting alone is not the panacea, and we need to do far more to tackle the insidious coercive tactics that are used, and also how they are used, how they are permeated, and sadly, through businesses, through charities even, through places of worship. That gives me real pain as a Muslim. That gives me pain that we see that. That should not be happening.
Can I just interrupt you for a moment, please? Can you please get to the question,
Yeah.
because your time's running out.
Don't worry, I'll get to the question, thanks. And that takes me nicely to the role of a councillor is a very powerful one, which opens a range of doors, including doors to people's homes. So can the council leader describe what checks and balances are in place to prevent those who are guilty of criminal offences from entering onto the council as elected members or in any other associated capacity?
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Simon. I think you clearly raised a number of very significant points. The low turnout is obviously a concern, although in fairness it wasn't just in Blackburn-le-Darwen, it was a national phenomenon, but it doesn't reflect over well on the democratic process. And neither does the process of insulting and using social media to attack people who've done nothing more than simply put their names forward to stand in an election. And I think we're very much concerned here with the point you make that this will inevitably, that the treatment that some people have received over the last few months, and particularly over the election periods, will clearly put people off from standing again. Not just women, but I think we also understand absolutely the point that you're making, that it will be particularly harmful and distressing to women. And as you know, in fairness, we've had a significant campaign on this side of the House chamber to try and enhance the number of women, because we believe that it doesn't reflect well on the democratic process if in the end women are significantly underrepresented. So we take those points as very seriously. Your specific question, the answer ironically at this current moment is virtually none at all, and that really leads us on to the next item on the agenda, which is our proposal that we will introduce DBS checks. I think most people would, the point you make in your notes about councillors being in a position of some importance, considered by members of the public respect. People are invited into their houses. I imagine most people here have been invited into somebody's house for some particular reason, maybe some issue of adaptation or something of that nature. So people do trust councillors, and I suspect a lot of members of the public will actually be surprised to know that really there's nothing at all to stop anyone from becoming a councillor. So we in answer to your question, the answer is currently not very much. And in answer to the question you haven't asked, what are we going to do about it? I refer you to item 7 on the agenda, which we propose, and I'm hoping that it turns out to be completely non-controversial. But what that will do is it will start to do the kind of thing that throughout the public sector is used to give the public reassurance in their elected members, or in fact in their public servants, and hopefully that will start a process really of improving the standards. So I hope that's a reasonable answer.
do you wish to ask a supplementary question which must refer to the answer you received? Thank you.
So thank you, Council Leader. Clearly you just said there's nothing in place right now. So my question is, what stops us from putting in measures such as, for example, when a councillor visits somebody's home, just as I would if I was working in the charity sector or the police sector, why can that not be logged so that we are accountable about where we go, who we visit, why not? And it can safeguard us all collectively. That's just an example. Can that be done?
Councillor Riley?
I think the answer is with great difficulty. Can it be done? I mean, what I would say, Simon, is that within the party structure, and in fairness, I'm including my Conservative colleagues in that, within the party structure, there are levels of checks and balances where people have to pass some sort of credibility test. And that's really maybe not because people are wonderful people, but it's because there's a level of embarrassment and such like. What I can't tell you is whether anything like that happens within the independents, because I've got no idea whether they have a structure and what they would do with it if they did have. So I would suggest that if you want to pursue that particular line of inquiry, you may want to write to the leader of the independents and ask him if he can give you that level of assurance as well. But certainly I think I can say reasonably that there is a level of there are levels of checks within the process, within the party structure. And they might not be magnificent, but there is at least something there.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So you're welcome to stay, of course, or you're free to go. Thank you. Okay, I can advise you that no notices of motion have been submitted under Procedure Rule 12, and I think we're pretty much all sitting in the right seat, so I don't need to remind